محاسبة النفس والإزر عليها. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, Rabbi zidni ilma, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. The Sheikh, the Imam, the memorizer of this time, Abu al-Fadl Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Hajar al-Isqalani al-Shafi'i informed us, while it was recited for him in Ramadan, the year of 842 after Hijrah, and said, I read for the Sheikh Abu Ishaq Ibrahim ibn Ahmad ibn Abdul Wahid al-Tanuhi from Abu Bakr ibn Ahmad ibn Abd-Daim that Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Irbili said. It was recited for the writer Shahda bint Ahmad while we were listening. She said, Abu al-Firdaus Turad ibn Muhammad ibn Ali al-Zainabi informed us and said, Abu al-Husayn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Mushran informed us and said, Abu Ali al-Husayn ibn Safwan al-Bardai informed us in Dhul Hijjah in the year 339 and said, Abu Bakr Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Ubayd ibn Abi Ad-Dunya al-Qurashi said. Al-Haytham ibn al-Kharija narrated to us and said, Baqiyya ibn al-Walid narrated to us from Abu Bakr ibn Abdullah ibn Abi Maryam, who said, Damra ibn Habib narrated to me from Abu Ya'la Shidad ibn Aus radiyallahu anhu, who said, the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, intelligence is the one who holds his soul to account and performs deeds for others for after death. And the incapable and unintelligent is the one who follows his soul in its desires and then hopes for good from Allah Azza wa Jal. Ishaq ibn Ismail narrated to us and said, Sufyan ibn Uyayna narrated to us from Ja'far ibn Burqan from Thabit al-Hajjaj, who said, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh said, hold yourselves to account before you will be held account by Allah, and measure yourself before you will be measured, for it is verily easier for you than the account of tomorrow, i.e. on the day of resurrection, that you hold yourself to account today, and beautify yourselves for the major presentation that day when you will be presented. None of your secrets or hidden affairs will be hidden for Allah. Harun ibn Abdullah narrated to us and said, Ma'an ibn Isa narrated to us from Ma'ik ibn Anas, from Ishaq ibn Abdullah, from Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anh, who said, I heard from Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh, one day when I went out with him, he entered a garden, and I heard him saying, while there was a wall between me and him, while he was inside, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Bakh, i.e. excellent or well done by Allah, you will verily fear Allah, O son of al-Khattab, or he will verily punish you. Muhammad ibn Yazid al-Ijli narrated to us and said, Abu Amir al-Aqadi narrated to us and said, Qurra ibn Khalid narrated to us from Al-Hasan, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ, and I swear by the self-reproaching soul. He said, the believer is not met except in a state when he is admonishing himself or his soul. He asks himself, what did I attend with my words? What did I attend with my eating? What did I attend with my drinking? And the weak he walks ahead without admonishing himself. Musa ibn Yusuf narrated to us and said, Amr ibn Humran narrated to us from Sa'id from Qatada, وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا, and the one whose affair have been lost. He said, he lost the biggest thing there is to lose. He lost his soul, and perhaps despite of this, you will find him preserving what he has of dunya and wasting his religion. and Salih ibn Malik informed me that Abu Ubaidah al-Naji narrated to them and said, I heard Al-Hasan saying, verily the slave will continue to be in a good state as long as he has an advisor in himself and holding himself to account in one of his concerns. Suraj ibn Yunus narrated to us and said, Sulaiman ibn Hayyan narrated to us from Ja'far ibn Barqan from Maymun ibn Mihran, who said, a man will not be God-fearing before he is stricter in holding himself to account than a business partner is with his partner. Abu Hafs as-Saffar narrated, Abu Hafs as-Saffar Ahmed ibn Humayd narrated to us and said, Ja'far ibn Sulaiman narrated to us and said, I heard Malik ibn Dinar say, may Allah have mercy upon a slave who says to his precious soul, are you not the possessor of this bad characteristic? Are you not the possessor of that bad characteristic? And then he criticizes it and ties it and makes it follow the book of Allah so that he is in control over him. Abu Musa al-Abdi narrated to us from Abu al-Malih from Maymun ibn Mihran, who said, the God-fearing hold himself to account more than a disobedient ruler, and a stingy partner holds others to account. Ishaq ibn Ibrahim narrated to us that he heard Sufyan ibn Uyayna say, Ibrahim at-Taymi said, I imagined myself in paradise, eating its fruits and drinking from its rivers and cuddling with its virgins. Then I imagined myself in hellfire, eating from its zaqum, i.e. a tree with roots in the bottom of hellfire, and drinking from its sadid, i.e. the pus flowing from the wounds of those punished, and handling its chain and shackles. So I said to myself, O my soul, what do you want? It said, I want to return to dunya and make good deeds. I said, now you have ambition, so perform deeds. Azhar ibn Marwan and others narrated to me from Ja'far ibn Sulaiman, who said, I heard Malik ibn Dinar, who said, I heard Al-Hajjaj saying while delivering a sermon, a person measures himself, a person takes his soul as his enemy. May Allah show mercy to a person who holds himself to account before the account ends up with someone else than him. A person grabs hold of the rein of his deeds and looks to where it is going. A person looks into his scale. A person looks into his balance. And he kept on saying a person until he made me cry. Abu Haythama narrated to us and said, Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi narrated to us from Sufyan, from Abu al-Ghar, from Wahb ibn Muhabbih, who said, it is written in the wisdom of the family of Dawood, it is an obligation upon the saint person to not become heedless or inattentive about 4 hours, an hour in which he privately speaks with his Lord, an hour in which he holds himself to account, an hour in which he is alone with his brothers who inform him about his mistakes and tell him the truth about himself, and an hour in which he is alone with his soul and what pleases it from what is allowed and praised, because this hour will aid him in performing those hours, and it is a relaxation for the heart, and it is an obligation for the sane person that he is not seen departing except for one of three: a supply for a meeting with Allah, acquiring his livelihood, or a pleasure in something which is not forbidden. And it is an obligation upon the same person that he is knowledgeable about his time, preserving of his tongue, and attending to his affair. Khalid ibn Khidash narrated to us from Hamad ibn Zayd, from Zurayq ibn Ruday, from Salama ibn Mansur, from a Mawla of theirs who used to accompany Al-An-Nafs ibn Qais, who said about Al-Ahnaf, I used to accompany him, and that most of his prayer was invocation, and he used to go to the lamp, put his finger in it, and then put his finger in it, and then say hiss. Then he would say, Oh Hunayf, what made you do what you did on this day? What made you do what you did on that day? Muhammad ibn Umar ibn Ali al-Thaqafi narrated to me and said, Ubayd ibn Hussein ibn Dahqwan al-Muallim narrated to me from Salam ibn Miskin, who said, Al-Hajjaj held a sermon or got up to deliver a sermon and said, O man, and you are all that man. Criticize yourself and constrain them, and grab hold of its leash and lead it to the obedience of Allah, and prevent them by constraint from the disobedience of Allah. Yahya Abu Muhammad al-Tamimi narrated to me and said, Hisham ibn Ammar, who said, Shihab ibn Khidash narrated to us and said, Sayyar Abu al-Hakam narrated to us and said, I heard Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf saying upon the pulpit, O man, and you are all that man. A man should constrain his soul and criticize it and lead it by its rope to the obedience of Allah, and withhold it by its leash from the disobedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. Abu Muhammad al-Talqani Mahmud ibn Khidash narrated to us and said, Kathir ibn Hisham narrated to us and said, Ja'far ibn Burqan narrated to us that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh wrote to some of his employees, and in the end of his letter it said, hold yourself accountable in good times before the difficult one on the day of resurrection, for verily the one who holds himself to account in good times before the account in difficulty, his return will be to satisfaction and a better state. And whoever is distracted by his life and kept occupied by his desires, then his return will be to regret and sadness. So remember that you are admonished with in order for you to be prohibited from what he prohibits, and for you to be from the people of understanding with regard to the reminder and admonition. Ismail ibn Zakaria narrated to us and said, Abdullah ibn Mubarak narrated to us from Ma'amr, from Yahya ibn al-Mukhtar, from Al-Hasan, who said, the believer is the caretaker of his soul, and he holds himself to account for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the account on the day of resurrection verily becomes lighter for a person who hold themselves accountable in dunya, and the account on the day of resurrection verily becomes difficult for those who took this affair, i.e. life, without holding themselves to account. Verily the believer is surprised by something and it pleases him, so he says to it, I verily want you, and you are from the things I need, but by Allah there is no connection to you. Rather, you are far away. There is a border between me and you. And he becomes heedless in something, so he returns to his soul and says, far away is this from what I intended with this, and what have I to do with this? By Allah, I will not be excused in this. By Allah, I will never return to this again, inshaAllah. Verily, the believers are a people who were stopped by the Quran, and it came between them and their destruction. The believer is verily a prisoner in dunya, and he is striving to free his neck. He does not feel safe in anything until he meets Allah. He knows that he will be held accountable with regard to his hearing, his sight, his tongue, and his limbs. He will be held accountable with regard to all of this. Fudail ibn Abdul Wahhab narrated to us and said, Hushaym narrated to us from Ismail ibn Salim from Abu Saleh, who said, when Yusuf said, ذلك ليعلم أني لم أخنه بالغيب, this in order for him to know what I did not betray him in secret. Jibril alayhi salam said to him, and not when you desire what you desired when you untied your trousers. He said, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ, and I do not declare myself innocent, verily the soul inclines towards evil. And my father narrated to me and said, Abdul Quddus ibn Abdul Wahid al-Ansari narrated to us and said, Al-Hakam ibn Abdul Salam ibn An-Nu'man ibn Bashir al-Ansari narrated to me that Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, when I, before he was killed, called the people, O Abdullah ibn Rawah, he was at the side of the army, and he had with him a rib and a skinny camel, and he had not tasted food for 3 days before this. Then he threw the rib and said, "You are nothing but dunya." Then he went forth and fought, and he was struck on his finger. So he began reciting some poetry, saying, "Are you anything but a finger bleeding? And what befell you was for the sake of Allah. O soul, if you do not fight, you will die. This is the gathering of death which you have arrived at. What you have hoped for, you have rarely found. If you do its deed, you are guided. But if you stay behind, then you will verily be evil," or sad. Then he said, "O soul, what are you longing for? Is it for Fulana? She is verily divorced 3 times, and to Fulan and Fulan goes the slave boys, and to Ma'ja his garden, for it is for Allah and His Messenger. O soul, what is with you, that you hate paradise? I swear by Allah, you will verily descend to the battlefield, obedient, or you will be forced, since you verily were content before. Are you anything but a sperm drop in a container? The people have verily become noisy and uttered sad cries." And Abu Musa narrated to me from Ibrahim ibn Abd al-Rahman, who said, "My father narrated to me from Sulaiman al-Mughira, from Humayd ibn Hilal, who said, Al-Aswad ibn Kuthum used to look at his feet when he would walk, and the houses of people at that time were modest, i.e. simple and not enclosed by covering fences. Then sometimes he would perhaps surprise the women when walking by, but they would say to each other, 'No, it is merely Al-Aswad ibn Kusum. He verily does not look.' Then he was about to go out to a battle, he said, 'O Allah, verily the soul claims during easy time that it loves the meeting with you. So if it is truthful, then provide it with that, and if it lying, then you make it love it, i.e. death, even if it dislikes it, and make it a death for your sake, and feed my flesh to beasts and birds.' He said, then he went out with a group from the army which he went out with, until they entered a garden that had a gap. Then the enemy came, and he stood at the gap, and he descended from his horse, struck its face, and went forth walking. Then he went to the water in the garden, and performed ablution by it, and prayed. And he said, 'The foreigners say this is how the Arabs surrender.' When he finished his prayer, he fought them until he was killed. Then the army in its great size arrived at the garden, and among them was his brother. So he said to his brother, 'Will you not enter that garden and see what happened to the bones of your brother, so you can put an end to it?' He said, 'I will not do anything contradicting what my brothers invoked for,' and was answered him. Al-Hasan ibn Arafah narrated to us and said, Al-Mubarak ibn Sa'id narrated to us from Nusayr ibn Tu'luq, who said, Abdullah ibn Qais Abu Umayyah al-Ghifari narrated to us and said, we were in the battle, and then the enemy of the people came. So a call was made to the people, and they returned to their rows, and it was a day with heavy winds. Then there was a man in front of me. The head of my horse was at the backside of his horse. Then he went, and he was speaking to himself, saying, O my soul, did I not attend this and that battle? And he said to me, your wife and your family, and I obeyed you and returned. Did I not attend this and that battle? And he said to me, your wife and your family, and I obeyed you and returned. By Allah, I will verily oppose you today for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla, no matter where He takes you or leaves you to live on. So I said to myself, I will verily observe him today. So I observed him, and the people attacked their enemy, and he was among the forerunners. Then the enemy attacked the people, and they became exposed to attack, and he was among their protectors. Then they attacked their enemy, and he was among their front runners. Then the enemy attacked, and the people became exposed, and he was among their protectors. He said, "By Allah," he continued in this matter until I saw him fallen. Then I counted 60 wounds or more in him and his animal.